this is Steve with Watchdog Superstore. Today we're going to wire up a hardwired alarm panel. The first step when you receive your alarm panel is to install the board inside the panel itself. If you notice here, across the top, you're going to see slots. The board slides right into those slots. Now we're going to install a recessed contact into a typical door jamb. Depending on if you're doing this with an attic application or a basement application, there are two particular spots that you want to drill. For an attic, it's best with a button switch type contact like the one we have here to go straight up into the door jamb, straight into the attic. In this home, however, we're using a basement. Basement, you want to go about 2 inches above the floor, straight in to apply your contact. You're going to need a few tools to do this. One, you're going to need a drill. Also, for this particular contact, we're going to need a 3/4 inch paddle bit and a 1/4 inch flex bit. This is important because you need the flex bit in order to run your wire down into the basement. Now, it's important in this application to go 2 inches above the floor. The reason for that is once I drill my pilot hole, I'm going to use a flex bit to drill down on an angle into the basement, like so. We're going to use a 1/4 inch bit to drill down into the basement. You want to make sure you have a slight angle to not pop through the door frame, but also to make it into the basement. Now for your typical contact, you want to use 22/2 gauge wire, like the one I'm holding here. The nice thing about the flex bit that we use, there's a hole on the outside that lets you tie your wire on. It's almost like putting a thread through a needle. Now that I have my wire attached, I'm just going to simply go downstairs and pull it through like a thread needle. Now that I have my wire ran in the basement, we're going to go ahead and cut it and apply our contact. Be sure to leave a good 6 inches of slack. This way down the road, if you ever have to replace your contact or if you have a problem with the wiring, you have a little bit extra to work with. Now we're going to go ahead and apply, this particular contact has screw terminals on it. And simply we're going to put in one wire in each screw terminal to create our loop, tighten it down. Okay. Push the slack down into the basement. The last step is to simply secure it with a couple screws. Now we've already installed a recessed contact. The next step is to protect the side door. We're going to use a surface contact. Surface contacts are probably the easiest things to install. We have a reed switch where you connect your 2 wires on the end of the screw terminals, and you have a magnet. What the magnet does when it's lined up with the reed switch, when it's pulled away, it opens up the loop, causing the alarm to go off. The simplest way to do this is to mount them side by side right onto a door or window. Now that we've mounted our board into the panel, the next step is to wire up the board. The board consists of 17 terminals. Each terminal has its own unique function. Terminals 1 and 2 are for your power. Now this is AC power, so it doesn't matter which color combination you use on which terminal. Terminals 3 and 4 are for your siren. These terminals are designed to only release power in the event of an alarm. So this would power your siren when the alarm goes off. Terminal 3 is for your positive for your siren, and Terminal 4 is your negative. Terminals 4 and 5 are for your auxiliary power for anything that needs sustained power for the operation of the alarm. For example, your keypads and your motion detectors. Terminal 4 is your negative line for every powered device on there, including your siren. Terminal 5 is all for your positive lines. Terminals 6 and 7 are communication lines. What these are for to communicate with the keypads properly for the proper operation of the alarm. Make sure that you have a green line going to 6 and a white or yellow line going to 7. It's very important that you keep the color combination correct. Terminals 9 through 17 are used for your zones. Zones are loops that are hooked up to devices. For instance, zone 1 in this particular configuration is for our front door. There are 2 lines here for our front door to make a complete circuit. If you notice, the first one is going directly into terminal 9. Terminal 10, we actually have a resistor tied onto the wire. It is very important that you use the resistors that come with the control panel. Otherwise, your zones will not close properly. For our zone 2, we're over on terminals 10 and 11. Once again, we have a resistor with a wire tied onto it. And then in terminal 10, we have the wire directly into the board. Terminal 11 and 12 is our third zone, zone 3. And that's for our motion detector. And once again, we have one going directly into 11, and we have a resistor on 12 with the wire tied onto the end. The last 3 remaining zones on the system are not being used. It is very important to use a resistor to close off those zones. And you do that by putting one end in one terminal and the other end in the other terminal of the zone. Otherwise, if your zone has remained open, you will not be able to use the system efficiently. And just remember, if you ever get lost, you always can refer to the schematic on the inside of your panel. It has everything listed in great detail. For a quick recap, terminals 1 and 2 are for your power, terminals 3 and 4 are for your siren, terminals 4 and 5 are used for auxiliary power on anything that needs continuous power, terminals 5 and 6 are for communication for your keypads, and terminals 9 through 17 are zones 1 through 6. With your panel, you will receive a foam cord and a jack hookup. The foam cord only requires 4 wires to be used on this particular system. The brown, gray, red, green. They just need to be hooked up in that order on these terminals, terminals 21 through 24. The other end plugs into the jack, and the jack has a phone line run back to your phone block or to another phone jack. Now we're going to hook up our keypad. It's important to follow the color combination that's on the back of the board. As you can see here, we have yellow, red, black, and green. Yellow is for our communication, red and black are for our power, and green is for communication as well. And once you have your color combination hooked up correctly, it's ready to mount onto the wall. Just put your slack in the hole. Now we are going to install a motion detector. There's a couple key elements before installing your motion detector that you want to pay attention to. One of those elements is the placement of the motion detector. You want to make sure that you put it in a place in your home that is like a main artery of the home. For example, a hallway is a great place to put a motion detector. If anyone were to break in through any of the bedrooms, they would have to cross that hallway to get access to any part of your house. Another important key is the height. The higher you place your motion, the more range you can get out of your motion. The typical place for a standard home is, like the one behind me, 7 feet high. This will give the maximized protection for any room. When installing a home security system, it's very important to consider fire protection. Even one smoke detector or heat detector combined with monitoring can greatly reduce property damage and save lives. Unlike the smoke detector you pick up at your local hardware store, which cannot be monitored with an alarm system, these are designed with a heat to rise feature, which means it needs a combination of heat and smoke to make them go off. So if you're cooking or deep frying in the kitchen, you're not going to have any false alarms with these. Depending on the size of your home, it is recommended that you have 1 or 2 per floor. If your budget only allows you to have 1 to start off, may I recommend that you put it in a centralized area of the home, typically on the main floor in between the stairwells. In every home there's a natural draft between floors involving the stairwell. So when the fire breaks out anywhere in the home, the first place the smoke's going to go is in this natural draft. So here we're going to place 1 smoke detector right in front of the stairwell on the main floor. That way if any fire breaks out anywhere in the home, this will be the first place that smoke will collect. All the products shown in this video can be found at www.watchdogsuperstore.com.